So with that said, I first have to read the mask update from the governor, and I'll read that again. The updated CDC guidance continues to state that individuals who are fully vaccinated may, as a general matter, resume many of the activities that they engaged in prior to the pandemic without wearing a mask or staying 6 feet apart, except where otherwise required by federal, state, or local laws, rules, or regulations. In response to the recent spread of the Delta variant, however, the CDC's updated guidance does recommend that even fully vaccinated persons wear masks or face coverings when indoors if other factors are present. In light of the information provided by the CDC, and in order to maximize protection of vulnerable individuals from the Delta variant, the Department of Public Health now advises that a fully vaccinated person should wear a mask or face covering when indoors and not in your own home. If you have an increased weakened immune system, or you are at an increased risk for severe damage, disease because of your age or an underlying medical condition, or if someone in your household has a weakened immune system, is at increased risk for severe disease, or is unvaccinated. Okay, with that out of the way, I'd like to speak to the first thing on the agenda is the 16 Summers Road. And I'd like to first apologize to the applicant that we do not have a full board. 2 of the members have left the board, and we are in search of replacing those 2 members. So again, I apologize for any inconvenience this has caused you. With that said, there's a couple of, I'm going to say, options that we have. We would like to ask you if you would like to extend or continue this hearing to a later date, mutually agreed upon, okay? There's that, or you can withdraw without prejudice your application at this time. Okay. You're shaking your head.
We'll extend.
You will extend, okay. So let's talk days when you would like to, and we're going to try and be open. We would like, tonight we're going to interview the final 3 candidates, okay, Steve? We'll make a decision out of the 6 candidates we have. We're on the agenda to go to the select board on Monday. Not sure the time, but we are on the agenda to go to the select board on Monday. At that point, we have a mutual meeting or between this board here, that is the remaining members, and the 3 selectmen to approve or disapprove the candidates. So with that said.
One question, once you approve the members,
Go ahead.
how long before they're basically active on your board?
Okay, so with that, what we're hoping for is there's a rule in the state of Massachusetts called the Mulligans Rule. And what that allows is people, okay, that have not served on the board, that are coming on the board, to view previous meetings as they were recorded, okay? And then they have to, I think they sign an affidavit saying something to the effect that they did review those meetings. So if they're approved on Monday, okay, and I don't have that crystal ball, I'm sorry. I'm going to say they could be up to speed as quickly as, I'm going to say that the following Wednesday. I'm going to look at my calendar. So we have a meeting with them on the 20th. We have another meeting the 21st, 22nd. We have, no meeting on the 21st.
Correct, the 22nd.
The 22nd, right, is a regular meeting. So, And then we have another meeting on the 27th for another applicant for associate. 28th, sorry, the 28th.
So the other one is the 28th?
The other one is the 28th.
So what's our state of?
29th, 30th. I'm looking to my associates.
You guys tell me. What day is the 28th? What day of the week?
28th is a Tuesday, I'm sorry.
29th is a Wednesday. Yeah. What's our?
If that does work, I'm looking at my,
Works for me. It's September 29th, right?
you are correct. Yes.
December? Never got asked. September.
September 29th. And it'll be at 6 o'clock at the townhouse, not here.
6 o'clock.
Right. Is that acceptable to you?
Yes.
Would you be willing to sign this?
Yes.
Okay.
You want to write it?
Go ahead, Joe.
She said Wednesday.
So that's a
September
Wednesday,
29th.
29th.
Wednesday, the 29th at 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock townhouse.
Yeah. And again, I apologize.
Is that, Joanne write that on that paper?
She
I
is
am.
going to, and he'll get
Yeah, are you doing 6 o'clock?
6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, all right.
So you can start signing, you can sign, I'll get another one on it too.
That's okay. I understand.
Thursday. If you want to sign that one and that one. Yeah.
Yeah. If you want to sign that one,
You can take one and I'll keep
You
one,
can
so you
take
have
that.
it already.
you can do it if you like.
Are we all set?
Yeah, you're all set. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that public hearing will be continued until 29th at 6 in the townhouse. So, the next item on the agenda, and we're a little early, but I'm going to, there's been some questions, I know, if my associates would indulge me for a minute, I'd like to reply back to Chairman Davenport's questions that he had during the select board meeting, which was Monday night. And I hope we're not trying to a power play at all. Our board is not, we're not trying to do a power play, okay? We're here to try and get a candidate, and we follow the process. And I'll explain to you why I am so process-oriented. I come from the aircraft industry, okay? In that industry, we have checklists, and we live and die by the checklist, as my friend, the pilot, said. So if we wanted to change a process, we would go and change the process, not first, but after we had everybody speak about the process, put their 2 cents worth in, if you will, their opinions and everything else. So the process would be changed after a thorough. So I know you think that we're trying to do a power play in the meeting, and that's what was also in the Hamden Wilbraham Times. I just read it this evening. But like I said, in my letter, the last paragraph was the planning board would be open to discussing the matter with the select board, okay, after the next town meeting. And there's a reason again for that, because those applicants that we are interviewing would serve, okay, until the next town meeting. It's a very difficult thing. We, as the board, would like to pick somebody that we would like to work with. We're not looking for a rubber stamp. On Monday, the selectmen will get their chance to ask the questions if they would like, any questions that they would like to ask of the applicants that we will interview here tonight. If they don't serve to your purpose, then of course you have the option to always vote no. So with that said, I'm trying to be open and honest with every member of the community here tonight, and we're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to have any hidden agendas. I want everybody to know that. We're trying to pick the best candidate that would work with the planning board and with the approval of the selectmen, okay? We're not looking for a rubber stamp from the selectmen. Thank you very much for your time. All right. Want to start early? Is Christine Broder here?
Yes.
Hi, Christine. Did you want to come up? You're going to be interviewed in front of all these people. Okay. Grab a chair if you would. So as you heard what I said, Christine, that if you make the cut and you come forward, the Board of Selectmen may not vote for you, okay? We may, again, so it's two boards getting together, trying to find a candidate that works for the planning board.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely.
That works with the planning.
That makes sense.
Okay. So with that said, the first thing I have questions from Chairman Davenport, okay? And what I'm going to try and do is try and keep to a schedule, okay? I'm not looking to rush you or anything, but I'm going to read Selectman Davenport's questions first, and then I'll turn it over to my associates for their questioning, and then it'll come back to me for my questions, okay?
Understood.
Thank you. So the first question again, what experience do you have in reading, writing, or interpreting regulations and laws?
I currently work at Mass Mutual in the law department. My position there is to support the head of the litigation department. So any incoming litigation to the company is handled by him and his team of lawyers and his team of paralegals. And my role in that is when these litigations do come in, I read the complaints that are filed by the plaintiffs or the complainants if they are not official complaints. And through that process, we determine who that is going to be assigned to based on what the complaint is related to. This is probably the closest I have to reading anything that contains regulations, though they're not regulations related to zoning or land use planning, those types of things. They're related to life insurance claims typically, or
Okay.
disability claims. But in that way, I'm familiar with the legal jargon, if you will.
Good. The second question is describe any experience you have had working as a member of a board or commission in or outside of government.
I unfortunately do not have any experience working with any boards.
It's okay, okay. You'll probably after this regret that you. Question number 3. What experience do you have in reading and interpreting blueprints, plot plans, or schematics?
Again, no experience.
Very briefly, describe an impression or facts you know about the town of Hamden and its future.
One more time.
Oh, sure, not a problem. Very briefly, describe an impressions or facts you know about town of Hamden and its future. So I guess I'm going to kind of, if you're still looking at me kind of with a, not with a pearl brow yet, but what's your impression or facts that you know about the town of Hamden or its future?
I grew up here. My impression of this town is that it is a small knit community It's a very sought after town for people to live in, apparently to start businesses in. And my impression is that the people of this community would like to keep it that way. They'd like to preserve this town and what it is. It's a beautiful town. It has wonderful citizens, and I think that the future of this town is to keep it that way, to maintain this small town living that people here are accustomed to, that draw so many people here.
Number 5, what steps do you take when analyzing a complex problem?
So I'd say, actually, I'm a lot like you. I need
You don't
my
want to
list.
say that.
Sure.
That's okay.
We already got one, John.
I need my list. So typically what I do is I look at the problem as a whole, and the first thing I need to know is that it's going to be a step-by-step to solve a problem. Any problem, there's always step 1. That's identifying the main problem, and any problems based off of that problem come after. So it's always solving the initial issue. And typically through doing that is I'll create a plan. What I do in my job is actually called something called standard work, and it's starting at the top. And your next step from there. And so that's where my lists come in. I have a billion of them for everything I do. So that's typically how I pinpoint issues.
I'm very familiar with standard work. So question 6, if you were on the other side of the table and you were interviewing someone for this vacancy, what traits would you be looking for?
Typically, I would be looking for somebody who is looking to be involved in this strictly for being involved in their town and for no other interests. I would look for somebody who is committed, and I would look for somebody who has a horse in the race, so to speak. Somebody, who wants to make a life here, who wants to live here long-term, raise their family here. And I would absolutely look for somebody who is detail-oriented.
Question 7, what do you see is the mission of a planning board?
I would say short-term, it's to look at any proposals that come in and consider the viability for the town. Long-term, it's pretty much what I said previously. It's to maintain the town for what it is, look at the appropriateness of these proposals and whether or not it's a suitable fit.
That's it.
Yes, that is.
Thanks for coming forward for
Okay.
all right, so I have some very standard questions. Actually, no one more interested in learning about what you do in litigation department in Mass. You talk about standard work. How does that play into your workday?
Oh, I'm sorry.
My question is, how does standard of work play into her workday? Trying to find out more about the process she goes through day to day.
So being at Mass Mutual, the way things work are a little different, where I support the head of litigation, but my manager is the head of all the administrative assistants, and that's within the operations department. And they all report up to the head of litigation, right. So it's a little confusing. But being in a pool of administrative assistants, one thing we're responsible for is making sure that everybody in the law department, being the operations team, has what they need. So we are responsible solely for creating the standard work for all of the processes in the law department. So any processes that we have are reviewed on a yearly basis, and what we do is process confirm to make sure that that's still the appropriate response. So while I'm doing the process confirms for the litigation department, we're also doing standard work process confirms for most everything in the department, a lot of which is invoicing.
Okay, so you're, in my role, I think we refer to that as standard SOPs, basically developing, maintaining, and updating standard operating procedures. Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. So I just wanted some clarification. Not illegal.
Guys in the back, if you got a discussion, go outside, please, okay? Thank you.
So that was very helpful. Thank you. My other standard questions that I've been asking everybody is, do you have any experience with economic development or real estate development or land use planning, either personal or professional?
I do not.
And then, other standard one I've been asking is, do you believe that potential tax revenue or new growth is something that the planning board should be considering when reviewing project proposals?
Absolutely.
And then the last question I have, which I'm rephrasing a little bit differently, can you think of a situation? I come from a background where I have to basically detach to make decisions when it comes to complex decisions. Can you think of a situation where you, either personal or professional, where you've been put in a situation where you have to really detach from your emotions, look at a problem, and figure out how it should be handled if you weren't, a large stakeholder or anything?
Yes, absolutely. So, a brief history, I worked in a residential home with kids who were in the custody of DCF. These were 12 to 17-year-old teenage girls, and there were 9 of them. And our role, I started off as a caseworker and ended up being the supervisor of the program. And our role, in general, other than to make sure they're clothed and fed, is to make sure that they learn skills to not only succeed in their family life, but to succeed in life in general, because a lot of these young ladies had trouble in school. So I could name probably thousands of situations over the time where you see these young ladies on a daily basis, and your heart really goes out to them, and it was very rewarding work, but it was very difficult having to be the hand of authority for somebody that you know their history, you know what they've been through, the decisions they've made that put them there, and it's sometimes very hard to be the hand of authority to these girls, but you have to, because that's what they need, many of them. You have to put aside their past and focus on their present and understand that while they've been through a lot, now they need to focus on moving forward, and you have to be the person to help them do that. It's very, and you have to detach from, you become very involved in their lives. It's very difficult.
I understand. All right, thank you very much. That's all I have.
Can you tell us a little bit, other than your work experience, just a little bit more about yourself and why you want to?
Sure. So I grew up in Hampton. I actually moved back into the neighborhood I grew up in. My parents still live up the street. My brother's my next door neighbors. I have a daughter. She will be 2 in February, and she's crazy. A couple of dogs. My husband obviously lived here with me. I went to school at Westfield State University, got my degree in psychology. To hopefully intend on going back to get my master's, but the last job I described was a lot, and so I took a break from that for now. And I'm a very optimistic person. I want to be more involved because I personally feel that specifically people of my generation aren't as involved as they should be. And so this is my way of trying to become involved.
Do you have any, what do you think for, as far as your professional, personal experience?
So, as clearly, I don't have any experience with zoning, planning, regulations, and bylaws, things like that. But what I lack in that experience, I will certainly make up for in being very organized. My lists, I'm very detail oriented, I'm very driven, and I think most importantly is I'm a very quick learner. I was able to, in the residential home, I worked there for 2.5 years, and I was the program supervisor for a year. So within 1.5 years, I worked my way through the ranks, so to speak, and that was all because I just strangely quick at learning things.
Good. Back to me. And some of these may be redundant.
Okay.
But the question is, why do you have an interest in becoming a member of the planning board?
So, as I just stated, I do really believe that not many people of my generation are as involved or at least I don't feel that way, and I want to be involved in this town. I don't plan on leaving this town. I want to raise my family here, and I couldn't wait to move back here. And any way that I can become involved, that's my goal, because I want to preserve this town for what it is.
You understand the commitment, you said committed, but it's 5 years.
Yes.
That's if we get reelected. And do you have any background in town or city government?
I do not.
No, and I'm gonna say you do a little. I'm gonna correct you because
Okay.
you worked with Department of Children and Families.
I suppose. I was not directly employed by them.
No, you weren't,
No,
but you had familiarity.
yes,
And I'm sure they had processes and things of that
Yes.
nature.
I knew many, many DCF workers who I'm sure are not DCF workers anymore. It's a lot of turnover there, but yeah.
I'm sure there is. It's,
Okay.
So what would you classify as your profession? I know you've been to college for psychology. You have you're administrator to the head of the legal department?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an executive assistant.
good enough. Are you flexible with your schedule? If we get busy, are you available for extra meeting dates? And I'll say traditionally, the board meets usually the second and fourth Wednesdays, second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. So if we get busy, sometimes we may add meetings to that schedule.
Yes, absolutely.
No problem.
No. I'm currently working from home, so, and like I said, family on both sides of me, so I always got a babysitter.
Okay. Are you comfortable speaking to make a point in front of people as well as at televised meetings?
Yes.
Are you part of any social media groups in which social media influence your decisions?
I am part of social media groups. No, it would not influence my decisions.
Are you part of any special interest groups in the town?
I don't believe so.
And are you familiar with the town of Hampton bylaws?
I am not, but I certainly can be.
That's the word.
I'm a quick reader.
Well, it's quite a few pages.
Heavy material.
And I think Jason hit one of my questions, so I'm
I actually got one more, John.
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Of course.
Do you work, I'm just looking back at my kind of work life, do you work with teams within Mass Mutual? I mean, is there set teams that you guys meet with on a regular basis to go over your standard work and that sort of thing, or how does that work?
So typically, when we have a standard work, we have to find that process owner. So for invoicing, it's our finance consultant, and we do that process confirm with him. So any of those process confirms, we always find the process owner, and that's throughout the entire department. So it could be for a real estate department, it could be for finance, it could be for MMUS.
Right, but what I'm wondering is, are you doing this individually, or is there a group of you that get together and kind of go over?
It's typically a group. So when we find that process, usually, so for example, the invoicing process, it's myself and 3 other administrative assistants, the finance consultant, the head of the operations department, that type of thing. So yeah, we come together as a group, anybody who has a hand in that.
I was only asking that because questions have all focused around boards or committees, but realistically, if you're working in corporate America, you're constantly working on teams, and there's
Yes,
a lot of
absolutely.
crossover, so I just wanted to ask that. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Like I say, we'll be making our decision tonight. I want to thank you for your time, first of all, and thank you for your interest. It's a difficult time to come on the board. So, the question arises, would you have been interested, or was it brought to them that people didn't leave? And that's okay, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I think I would have, and I can't exactly remember how I heard about the vacancies. I think it was my sister-in-law. She heard somewhere through the grapevine, and I thought,
Through social media?
interesting, probably. So isn't that where it's all heard these days?
That's right, yes. All right. Christina, I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. for your time.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next person up, I believe, is Don Collins. Don, you here? Yeah. How you doing tonight?
No.
I'm going to, again, first read the 7 questions from the chairman of the select board, and then I'll turn it over to my associates and then back to me. So the first one is, what experience do you have in reading, writing, or interpreting regulations and laws?
Well, I served on the planning board in the 70s and 80s for 10 years, 2 terms, and that is where I had most of my experience in terms of looking at regulations. From a legal point of view, I have no experience. When it comes legal questions come to mind, I defer to the legal profession.
The second question, describe any experience you have had working as a member of a board or commission in or outside of government.
But been on a number of boards in terms of one Mount St. Vincent Nursing Home. I was on the board there where they were in the process of transferring the ownership and was involved in those negotiations. In town here, I served on a study committee for the Cumberland Farms project. We had negotiations with the people at Cumberland Farms. We met with the state environmental people, got their input. The thing was going along pretty smoothly. We thought we had a resolution until it got turned over to the lawyers. And when the lawyers got through with the contract, it was so cumbersome for the town of Hamden that we had an item on the town meeting to discuss and vote on it. We withdrew it because we couldn't, in good faith, recommend, given the liabilities and the restrictions that were put on the lawyers.
Question 3. You also, on your resume, you have other ones here. You were on the police station building committee. You're on the DPW search committee. So there's more than what you've spoken to. So question 3, what experience do you have in reading and interpreting blueprints, plot plans, or schematics?
All of the major experience that I've had in that area is when I was serving on the planning board. There were a couple of developments that came before us at that time. There was a number of individual petitioners for small things, complaints against against neighbors, and that was kind of the experience, most of the experience I had in terms of reading blueprints. I did this week go down this water plan that's coming down Main Street across in front of my house. I have concerns because we have a couple of 66-foot trees right on the tree belt, and I studied the schematics of that and have some concerns.
They'll be taken right next to it, basically. Yeah. Okay. 4th question, very briefly, describe an impression or facts you know about the town of Hamden and its future.
Well, we've lived in the town of Hamden for 49 years. Moved
No, that's $42. No, it's $2. $42? Is it a real antique? Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
When we moved here, we were looking for a small town environment where we could raise our kids. would make friends that hopefully they would last a lifetime, who would be able to run around the town into the fields and whatever, and enjoy a nice childhood. We're very fortunate in finding that. In terms of the specifics, when we moved here, the town had around 4,900 residents. During the 50-year period, it went up to about 5,200, 5,300 max. The most recent census, which was done in 2020, Hampton now comes in at 4,966 residents. So over the course of the 50 years, the population hasn't grown in Hampton. There have been a number of developments and buildings and whatever, but it's a controlled environment. Another thing, I read recently that Massachusetts Audubon Society, every 5 years, studies and analyzes every town in the state, and they analyze how much of the use of the ground, how much is developed, how much is open spaces and natural. Camden came in with 12% of the land in town is developed, and 88% is natural open space. That's just the town has been a place that we never regretted moving to this town. We raised 5 kids. We never in the 50 years had any security problems in this town, which is certainly unique.
It's question 5. What steps do you take when analyzing a complex problem?
Well, I consider myself to be an analytical person in my training and in my experience. The process I would go through is first fact gathering, facts gathering phase, where you would try to learn as much as possible about any particular issue that was before you. Secondly, look into any laws or regulations that would pertain to this, perhaps get some legal counsel with it, if it requires it. And finally, get into a decision-making process where you try to comply with regulations, the laws, what you think is best for the particular organization.
Question 6. If you were on the other side of the table and you were interviewing someone for this vacancy, what traits would you be looking for?
Well, I'd be looking for somebody that was analytical and had some analytical background, somebody who has an appreciation of the town of Hampton, and a commitment to the town of Hampton. I could go on about previous involvement with the town, but be a little self-serving.
That's okay. And the last question, 7, is what do you see is the mission of the planning board?
Well, the planning board, basically their mission is to listen to petitioners that come before them for developments or individual houses or anything that impacts the town and pertains to the bylaws of the town. So the important thing is to analyze the situation, be familiar and look at the bylaws and make a determination.
Those are the 7 questions from Chairman Davenport. I'm going to turn it over to my associate.
How are you?
Good.
That's good. So my standard questions are, do you have any economic development experience, real estate development experience, or land use planning? I'm familiar with, and just to go over it on your letter, served on the planning board in the 70s and 80s. I served on the personnel board for 13 years. And then you've got Police Station Building Committee, Cumberland Farm Study Committee, Town Administrator Search Committee, and DPW Director Search Committee. So I thank you for everything you've done so far.
You for your service.
So obviously you do have planning board experience. So I'm going to skip those because unless you want to elaborate. When you were, well, this is another standard question, but when you were on the planning board or now, looking back on it, do you think that when considering project proposals, the planning board should be considering financial impact to the town and financial costs associated with the potential project, or
Such as tax revenue.
tax revenue, increase in population versus?
Not as the primary concern or issue, but certainly as a secondary issue. If in fact there is a significant impact.
And just so you know where I come from, I was a contractor, design engineer consultant, and now I work on the back end as far as I deal with contaminated soils and disposal of those. So I've been involved in redevelopment projects my whole career. So that's kind of where my mind sometimes goes, because that's my professional background. And then the other one that I had that I asked the previous applicant is, can you remember or describe a situation in your professional or personal life where you had to put aside your personal feelings in order to make a decision that may not have been completely in harmony?
Had to make a lot of decisions. We raised 5 children, and everybody was raised children to teenage years, so makes a lot of difficult decisions. But more professionally, yes, I ran a company. We had 25 employees, and we had a situation where a pressman was not being cordial to his press helper and putting him down, etc. Came to my attention. I took the pressman aside. I said, "Listen, most of us would rather be doing something else than coming in here 40 hours a week, but I want you to treat this person the way I treat you. I treat you civilly. I want you to treat him civilly, because while we would rather be someplace else these 40 hours, we're going to be here, so let's make it as pleasant as possible. Get the work done."
Can you elaborate, because I'm not familiar with it, can you elaborate what it was?
It was a sheet-fed printing company based in West Spring.
That's all I got. Thanks. Your turn, yes. Sorry.
It's okay. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your planning board experience? Maybe what we just sent down from it and why you want to come back to it?
Well, there were a few developments. It was a quiet period, but all of a sudden real estate went up, and there were, a large number of applicants coming in. There was a lawsuit involved in one of them. I was chairman at the time. It was all the way from my business to depositions, and at that time it was a crisis for me, because between my family responsibilities and my business responsibilities, I didn't have time to be spending half a day or a day chit-chatting with lawyers, and so at the end of the term, I just, at that particular point, I had too much on my plate, and elected not to go for another term. Now I'm retired and have time available in a situation.
So what do you think that you've gained over the past, since you left the planning board, that you bring back to the group now?
Well, when I was on the planning board, the regulations were 54 pages. Now they're 135 pages. So things have gotten a lot more complex. I would have some brushing up to do on the current regulations. But in terms of first year I was on the planning board, I can recall, you didn't know what was going on. I sat there almost for the first year and just listened and read the regulations and whatever. It took a good year to get a grasp of you know, what was on the clock. How the regulations should be interpreted and what we meant. So that was my personal experience starting out.
Good. Again, Don, some of these may be redundant. I got a couple that are specific for you. But first one I have is, why do you have an interest in becoming a member?
Well, I've always had an interest in the town here, based on my past experience. Right now, I'm not on any board or study committees. I recognize that the planning board is in crisis right now. In essence, we don't have a planning board. And so I just felt I have the time, have some experience in the area, and I felt it would be submitted a letter.
Obviously, you have background in town and city government. Town and city government, so yes. And I'm going to ask, you're retired now, so what was your profession, if you will? I see, you know.
The last 25 years of my career was spent as the owner and president of the printing company.
Yeah.
A company with 25 employees, and that was my day-to-day responsibility. In good times and bad. We had good times and we had tough times. In the late 70s, President Carter, prime interest rate went to 14%. Don't know how many people experienced that, but it was the gas crisis. We couldn't get gas for your cars, with trucks, and send them.
So again, I'll go, Boise Cascade, again, paper, you know what I'm saying, so, Bordeaux Company, again, paper. You are a management consultant for Henry Downey?
That's correct. Henry Downey and Company was a CPA firm in Springfield. I was not in the auditing area. I was in doing management consulting work. We had a computer at that time, in the computer division. We would go into companies and computerize their accounting record.
Gotcha.
And then if you had a client who wanted to put on a major addition, then they would come to us and they would ask us, to prepare projections to be able to go with them to the banks. The nursing home environment that I was involved in. There was a new nursing home originally. When they sent their application down to the state for the daily per diem, it came back at like $16 per day, but they needed 25. So Henry Downey had asked me to get involved in it. It was about 75 pages of regulations. Read through the regulations, apply for a hearing, go to Boston and hear, and eventually get their reimbursement up to at least the break-even basis.
Yeah. Looks like right out of college you went to United Aircraft.
Right.
Can you remember what you did?
Wasn't flying.
No.
No, I was in the finance department in a management training program.
Gotcha. Okay.
Management consulting, that was a 40-hour work week, right?
At least.
I'm joking. I think it averages like a 70 or 80-hour work week.
Next question I have, are you flexible with your schedule if we get busy?
Very flexible.
Okay. Yeah. Being retired, yeah. Are you comfortable speaking and making a point in front of people as well as on televised?
Yes.
Part of any social media groups, and would social media influence any decisions you have?
I'm not a social media bug. I am on Facebook so that I can keep in contact with what's going on with my kids scattered throughout the country. And I'm on that 01036 site to read up on what's going on in town.
Are you part of any special interest groups in the town?
only other organizations I'm involved in. I'm a member of the Garden Club and a member and the treasurer of the and the community garden.
And obviously you're familiar with bylaws, they've changed a little bit.
Yes, yes. Familiar with some of them.
Yes, so this is a tough question. How do you feel you can be objective with this, with the self-storage? In other words, I saw a sign out in front of the house, it's gone now. How do you feel you can be
Go into
objective?
that, the people, the Save Hamden people contacted me, asked me if I would come to a meeting to discuss with them the planning board process. I did go to that one meeting, asked me if I would put up a sign, and put the sign up. When these vacancies created were on the planning board, I took the sign down, I felt it was not appropriate to be up there under those circumstances. But in terms of being objective, yes, you gotta go by the regulations, and I know there are some issues there that concerns about water, concerns about legal things, et cetera. Those will have to be, studied, and then you gotta go by the regulations.
That's all I have. Anything else? Don, I appreciate your time. I thank you again for your previous service, and we'll be making a decision, and again, we go in front of, if you're selected, we go in front of the select board, okay?
And what date was that?
That will be Monday, okay? Not this Monday coming up.
It will be.
Yes, it'll be, yeah, the 20th, thank you, Joanne, 20th, yeah. So, and again, they have a vote, they have 3 members there, we have 3 members. So, that's where we're at.
Okay, fine.
Thank you very much again. Good. The last applicant is, and I hope I'm going to pronounce the name correctly, Richard Muse.
He was at 7.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, we're way over.
No.
7:10. If you want to recess for
Make a motion to take a recess until
10?
7:10.
yeah, sound good? Okay,
Those in favor? Aye.
good, thank you. If you'd like to go to the men's or ladies' room, whatever. You want to stand up?
Yeah. Got it? Yep, second one was Don Collins. Donald Collins. They call him Don, but Donald Collins. Is Richard Muse. I-S-E. Got it? Okay. Yep. Oh, really? So I told him 7:10, so we're a little.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, he's
Oh,
supposed
maybe he's
to.
back. He did,
He confirmed it was coming, so.
oh,
I mean, so it went 2 days ago. Probably a little early. Taking out that? See you.
Yeah.
And Bill. I'll take the laptop home. Okay. Thank you. So Christina, did you graduate in with Gina Fiore? My daughter knows. Gina Fiore. How old are you? 27.
That is,
Pretty nice. She knows. But I told her to send your name to her. And she said, yeah, I know. And you went to West. And so did my daughter.
oh,
Yeah. Gina was there, probably one of her juniors. She was a freshman.
I don't know how this goes.
Was she?
I don't know.
She was up way back. You'll see. Way back. Oh, were you cheating? Yes. Yeah, that's what she said to me. That's exactly what she said to me. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was way back with Mrs. What was her name? Farrell. Yeah.
This is Farrell.
Yeah, that's how she did it.
That made me feel
So you're not old.
It's my last year.
I think we should do this.
Enjoy it. Maybe you're still young. I got 2 more years on my
It's definitely an interesting process.
My mom turns 16 next year.
Did she go to Minnetonka?
No, she grew up in Ohio.
Ohio.
It's a very
Next school, my brother went to Minnesota. He's 10 years older. He graduated.
Yeah. My brother's 6 years younger than me, so same thing.
So there's a few teachers here that he has. Not many jobs.
Sheena graduated, and then I have triplets that are 6 years younger than her, same as mine. So, yeah, so she's got younger brothers.
It's hard for me to count to a meeting.
It's kind of nice, she's the older one.
So then he went to
They're all the same.
She's in high school. She's the graduate before they did it. She was the last graduating class.
I have to say, it's so good. I remember all this.
In 2013, she graduated in the fall.
And, I guess that's something
They
that
started with renovations.
Yeah,
And she left.
yeah, it's crazy.
I know her. I just wanted to say something to you because I said, "Do you know her?" Yeah, I know her from cheerleading.
That's funny.
I know those remotely, but I did watch them.
I know her. For me too. I wish I could go back. I know.
No.
Tell her I met you.
Yes, absolutely.
They'll decide to.
Thank you.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
But I know one of them, medical field. I was so fascinated.
I've got to get back. I got to go back to the crap.
Oh, yeah. They'll discuss it, and they'll probably wait for someone to also.
7:30. Is that okay? But I would probably can text her once they start making a decision. So I would say 7 to 7:30 for the last person. And then 7:30.
My understanding is,
But I would say 7:30.
it wasn't first.
So yeah, tough, I would say.
And so I had to go back and come forward right away. Even if they have favorites on that, they have to be that to the three people by the end of that. So yeah, they probably have people from the first thing when they say, you know what, I would probably have so-and-so. But probably will have not stated on it. They wouldn't until they have else we can do, so that you get an idea, this way, definitely informed. Of course, when I'm watching it,
Aren't the slides kind of weird when they go out? That's I've never seen
Somebody else asked me are so annoying and so interesting. You go to larger, even the larger ones, get a handful of lawyers. It's like people, they just have, they like to have words in their and, you know, by the end of the meeting, you're like, so ready to be out here. They're like, okay, let's have a secret session. I'm like, I'll give you credit for the paperwork that I have time, patience, or not. Yes, and you know that. I would say, what do you think we'll be just have around so she can move like so 7:10, 7:30 until what do you think? So she needs to
Sometimes the thing for around 8:15.
I'm really, if it changes very much, like, impressed with all of them. So what time it was, I was looking at them different islands.
She got some out. She came back.
I don't have any problems.
It's not bad. My eyes are so dried out here, I can hardly see.
Because I didn't know what I kind of thought. I would say, you know, but I was really curious. I was like, oh, they're very comprehensive about this. Oh, that's awesome. No, I had a,
You're in there.
keep up with
Come back, it's a circle. Well, we've dealt with it. I'm not easy, I'm not supposed to.
We've had our little spats.
It's okay, no, mine's bad. If you get over it, that's the way you work.
Appreciate that other person.
That's right, that's how I am. Hey, I'd rather have somebody open.
Yeah. Good.
because they run their own ambulance, so they can have about their they're it's, like I said, it's very interesting to see. You know, of course, I also interviewed one of the gentlemen who runs actually the numbers here, and again, very like, it's just the level of professionalism and the level of
No, just your eyes are dried out.
and I would never want to have that responsibility.
was mentioned. Do they still do that? Yeah, it was broadcast in Westfield State. I know, is it still there? Gina, they brought us to a room, it was like a studio, and they said, "Well, I never knew that."
So I don't think getting on. How you doing, Richard? That's it. Mine's more of a nightmare, so that's okay.
Depends on the day.
Every day late, that's okay.
So what would you like to know?
Excuse me, folks. Meeting, thank you. I want to explain to you, I don't think you were in the room when we spoke earlier, to the other applicant, so I'm going to give you the same spiel, if you will. What happens is, tonight we're going to interview you. We've had 3 other applicants and 2 before you tonight, and you're the last applicant, okay? We're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but eventually, if you're selected, okay, by the planning board, we go in front of the select board next Monday, okay? If you're selected, we'll go in front of the select board, and we have a joint meeting with the select board, and the vote is whatever, okay? So the select board may not vote for you, they may vote for you, okay? It depends, we don't know the outcome, nobody has that. Okay, but tonight, what I'd like to do is I'm going to ask you 7 questions that came from the select board chairman, okay, Don Davenport. I'll have those 7 questions, I'll ask them first, and I'll turn it over to my associates, Jason and Madison, and then it'll come back to me for the final questions.
All right.
Okay, thank you. The first question is, what experience do you have in reading, writing, or interpreting regulations and laws?
Well, I chaired I didn't chair. I was a serving member of the police commission in Springfield for approximately 3 years. And we did deal somewhat with the law in that board. Also, to prepare myself for that, there's a civilian police training program. It's a watered-down version of what an officer would go through to become an officer. And I sat down and took that 12-week course and went on board with that. I also served as an assistant to the superintendent in the town of Hatfield, Massachusetts. And I dealt with a number of regulations there, dealing with getting phone reimbursement money back from the federal government. Of course, all the school regulations. I did planning of various functions within the school. For example, I designed and built the public access television station for the town of Hatfield. Also, I chaired the technology commission for the city of Springfield for several years, back several years ago. And we had to assess the entire, all of the technology programs that were being used by the city and the school department, and look for grant opportunities and make sure that we were aligned with what the state expected from us. So those are the highlights, John.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Describe any experience you have had working as a member of a board or a commission in or outside of government.
Okay. In addition to the boards and the commissions that I already mentioned, I was the technical consultant for the Black Men of Greater Springfield, who run a marvelous program. After the Million Man March 20 or so years ago, they were very concerned with what was going on with young Black males in the Springfield community. And one of them asked, who's going to step up and fix this? If not us, who? If not when, now? And the long and the short of it is they put together a Saturday school. And I stepped in and drove the technology part of that program. I had a volunteer team, brought them in, and we created a whole computer system for the Saturday school to use. Just as an aside, the server's name was Primus, after Primus Mason, who donated Winchester Square to the city of Springfield. A little history note. So other than the commission, the commissions, again, that I mentioned, that would be the other one I could add.
Sure. Number 3, what experience do you have in reading and interpreting blueprints, plot plans, or schematics?
Schematics, as a technology teacher at Putnam Voc, I've seen a few of those. Blueprints, I have a working knowledge of because I worked my way through high school in construction. Okay. So kind of understand those. Am I an architect?
No. Okay. Question 4. Very briefly, describe an impression or facts you know about the town of Camden and its future.
Camden is, it's a very interesting little town. We moved here about 5 years ago, and it's got a very different culture from Springfield. We're talking, New York City versus Mayberry. And, I understand that folks really value that culture. And they want to be in Mayberry, but at the same time, they're kind of walking a fine line here to make sure that they can grow at the same time. So there are some values, I think, to be successful in any position you're going to work at in this town. You have to understand the town's values, as well as all the regulations and such, in order to make decisions that people are going to be happy with.
Question 5, what steps do you take when analyzing a complex problem?
There's kind of two models that I employ for that. The first is the IPOF model. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Input, process, output, and feedback. In any complex problem, you want to take a look at your inputs. You have people and data and information and things. You have a process that you want to use to solve a problem or get to where you need to be. And that, again, is going to ask you the question, well, how are you going to utilize all these elements? And finally, you have an output that you, if you do things right, should be observable and measurable and repeatable. And based on that output, you're going to get feedback, which I imagine happens on the planning committee when that feedback can be positive or negative, let's put it that way. So the other model is the traditional problem-solving model, and these two dovetail together, John. You have to define a problem, define a goal, and define a way to implement a way to get there. And that seems kind of mechanical, except in real problem solving, again, you go back to the values. Values drive your decisions. If you're motivated, let's say by making sure that your tax base is solid, you're going to make decisions that might be different from somebody who's determined to keep a small town flavor. But those two models are primarily what I use. And they've come in very handy in my career. I left teaching for 5 years, John, and I was working for Digital Equipment Corporation, which at one time was the second largest computer corporation in the world. While I was there, well, the reason I got there is because I was teaching graduate courses in human resource development at American International College. Two of the students there were management in the training and HRD department. And they liked my style. They asked me if I wanted to come and interview. So they hired an English teacher to come into a computer business and teach people how to build hard drives. I had never seen a computer before I did that. But the moral of the story is if you have the right technology and you listen to people and find out what they actually want, you can put together something that'll work for them.
Very good. Question 6, if you were on the other side of the table and you were interviewing someone for this vacancy, what traits would you be looking for?
Reliability, someone that's going to walk their talk. The ability to interface with people. Because I don't care if you live in New York City or if you live here, you have to be able to look people in the eye and listen to them and figure out what's really on their mind, which is sometimes a little tricky because sometimes until people know they can trust you, they're not going to tell you what they're really thinking about. They're going to tell you what they want you to hear. Two different things. I guess there's three questions. And when I interview people at Digital, we interview people to come on board and build a new product that we were designing. And there were three critical questions. Can I do the job? Am I reliable? And do I relate well to people? So if I were you, that's what I'd be asking me.
You may see those questions coming up. And the last question is, what do you see is the mission of the planning board?
You have a piece of turf here. People live on that piece of turf. And the planning board is hopefully going to give you and the select people the advice they need to use that piece of turf so that as many people as possible are happy and fulfilled and want to live here. Because if you blow that mission, then no one's going to want to live here and you're going to have a ghost town.
Very good. That's all the questions from the chairman of the of the select board. I'm going to turn it over to my associates, then it'll come back to me.
All right, thanks for coming forward.
Oh, thank you.
So actually, before I ask you my the standard questions that I have, you mentioned digital, you mentioned teaching English.
I've actually taught a number of things, Jason. I started out as an English teacher, worked in the computer industry for 5 years, including as a technical writer. Then went back to public education as a teacher of computer science because I had worked in the industry for 5 years.
Yep.
I've also taught at 5 colleges in the area. Human resource courses, which included psychology. I got drafted at one point out of sheer desperation to work in the program called the Quinn Bill, you might recall. And a friend of mine headed it, came over and dragged me out of the house. He said, "You're going to teach a history course for me now." So I have taught some history, and history is kind of my hobby now. I've read probably 70, 75 history books in the last 5 years. Retirement's a beautiful thing.
So primarily teaching or?
Primarily teaching and working in industry as a trainer.
Computer science, teaching art.
Yes,
Teaching as well.
yes.
So my standard question is, do you have any economic development, real estate development, or land use planning experience?
Absolutely not. Next question.
This goes back to your, your discussion on certain people are going to be looking at things from certain perspectives. I also serve on the board of assessors, so in the back of my mind, when I'm serving on this board, I always think about tax implications. Is that something that would pop into your head, or?
Again, when I was a teacher of English in middle school, I was invited to develop a training program for which in the early 80s was a $52 million project at Digital Springfield. And before I walked in that building, I hadn't even seen a computer. It's a matter of having the ability to listen to folks, to learn while you're moving. And 3 weeks after I hit the building, I had a computer set up. And while everybody else in the department was using a typewriter to do their work, I had a standalone computer and I was creating memos and training products on the computer. So I'm reasonably comfortable walking into a situation cold and being able to learn. My question to you would be, as a potential planning board member, if there are legal situations that I might have a question about, do we have an attorney or do we have someone who's aware of such things that I could ask a question to?
We have town council, usually the chairman deals with town council.
Great.
And we have legal questions. And then my last question would be, can you identify or describe a situation, either professional or personal life, where you've had to put either emotions aside to make a decision or put your personal feelings aside to make a decision. And I guess try to make a decision in a vacuum despite having emotions or.
In HRD training, we call that suspending your judgment. There are situations that you go into, you might have a bias. And if you're going to make an intelligent decision, you have to put that aside. You want an actual example of a situation?
If you got one, yeah.
We'd be here all night, but.
Only one.
I was teaching English and I had a youngster who at 12 years old had a rather impressive list of crimes that he had committed. And I had him in the classroom. And one day he declared to me, I'm not doing any work. It was the end of the day. I let everybody leave but him. I said, well, you're not leaving until we work this out. And at that point, I don't know how much experience you've had with teenagers, but he dropped the F-bomb on me a few times because that's the cardinal sin. Figuring I'd throw him out. And I looked at him and I said, Freddie, you're a little confused now because I haven't thrown you out of the room. Now, initially, to be really honest with you, I wanted to go up one side of this kid and down the other because he just had a major attitude. But at that point, if I was going to reach the kid, I had to forget what I was feeling inside. And 15 minutes later, the kid was in tears. I can't understand this. Why are you talking to me like this? Everybody else would have thrown me out by now. And we reached a point where he realized I was there to help him. And the next day I got a punch on the shoulder. He goes, hey, Muse, good morning. And that was one of the defining moments when I was an educator. Thank you. You're welcome.
That's all we got.
So what made you live in what religions were?
I really like the idea of living in a small town after living in a city. And I love Springfield, don't get me wrong, Randy, but I was maybe looking for some peace and quiet. And Springfield has a zoning ordinance saying you can't own a motorhome over 22 feet long or a trailer. You folks don't have that. And I have a 28-foot long trailer. I knew something about the neighborhood. Where we saw a house we really liked, and it's a terrific neighborhood. I have terrific neighbors. One of them is sitting directly behind me, blushing right now, but that's okay. I really like the small town feel, and what I really thought was intriguing is that you folks understand the whole concept of a democracy. You have town meetings. People get to go and speak their piece. If that's going to happen in Springfield, you've got to know someone. You've got to help them constantly get elected. And because you're just one small frog in a very, very, very big pond. And here, maybe I'm a little bigger frog. So
with all your experience teaching and computer science, what do you think any professional skills that you bring to the work?
I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy working with other people. After being here for a while, being here as in on Earth, I've come to the conclusion that if you listen, you learn a heck of a lot more than when you talk. I like the challenge of getting in things, getting my hands dirty, and playing with problems. My whole career was about making a difference in other people's lives. So this is doing it in a slightly different direction.
Good. Some of these, again, may be redundant, okay? But these are my questions. Why do you have an interest in becoming a planning board member?
That's interesting, because friends of mine in town government locally said I should have my head examined for wanting to do this. I do have a somewhat masochistic streak. No, seriously, John, it's a challenge. And the whole idea of looking at detail, but at the same time, understanding the big picture is kind of a fun thing. You're laughing.
Yes.
That'll wear off.
Yeah. They'll run you down. Do you have any background in town or city government? It sounds like you do have a background.
Yes, again, I served as the chair of the Technology Commission. I was on the Police Commission, not as the chair.
No.
You have to be a lawyer to do that. I have my standards.
Okay. So what would you classify your profession as? What would you say your profession? You're retired now.
Yes, sir.
So you're a retiree, but before that, what would you say? Were you an educator?
Lifelong educator. I've had the privilege of being able to teach literally every grade in public school and undergrad and postgraduate courses. Had the chance to write, design a course at AIC to teach teachers to use computers in the classroom. And wrote my own book for that because I couldn't find a book that really serviced their needs after listening to what they wanted.
Next question, are you flexible with your schedule? If we get busy, are you available for extra meeting dates? So traditionally, we meet the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month. So are you available for additional meetings?
What time is your meeting, John?
They're usually at 6 o'clock.
Usually it's 6 o'clock, okay. I think that's a good possibility. The only thing I have to check on it is I also am on the Patient and Family Advisory Council at Bay State.
What they think.
Yeah, we're juggling a few things now, like COVID and putting an MRI room in the hospital. So
Yep.
as long as there's not a scheduled conflict, I can be flexible.
You're flexible. Next question, are you comfortable speaking to make a point in front of people as well as at televised meetings? So that's pretty
No,
self-explanatory.
I'm a wallflower.
Yeah, there you go. Are you part of any social media groups? And would social media influence any decisions you make?
Social media is just that, social media. I am on Facebook. I am on Twitter. I'm on several RV groups. Because they're a great place to go if you're having an issue with your RV. You ask, somebody has the answer.
Are you part of any special interest groups in this town of Hampton?
Not currently.
Are you familiar with the Hampton bylaws?
No, but I'm willing to learn.
I just got a couple of questions. Is it Muse? Is that how you?
Muse, yes.
Do you have a brother?
I do. I don't admit it in public often, but
Ray?
yes, yeah.
My sister worked with Ray.
Oh, yeah, she was on the job.
She, well, actually, she, a long time ago,
Really?
she was an interpreter for the Springfield Police Department. So she knows me.
He was actually going to be one of my students at one time because I taught in the program for them. And I had some really special stuff ready for him. But
Okay, yeah,
he checked it out.
that's okay. You don't have to tell him that. All right. I think I'm good.
Okay.
Good.
And my statement to you to summarize, this whole situation is look, if I'm a fit, then by all means ask me. If I'm not going to cry myself to sleep. I have a lot of other things to do.
Yeah.
But the main thing is if I'm a fit, then go ahead and invite me. And if I'm not, you got to do what you got to do for the town.
I appreciate that. Yes. Thank you very much for your time.
Nice chatting with you, I think. I don't like this high pressure stuff.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right. So how do we go from here? Any suggestions?
As far as discussing what our options are,
I can make an easy decision on a person already.
I have one that's an easy decision to make.
Okay. Madison, do you also have one that's easy? Or you do? Do you want to tell us? Or should we all try this?
Heather is definitely my.
Eric, yeah, I believe it's.
So Heather is, I think, our first choice.
Are you gonna
And-
vote
and-
or what? Just
And
put her.
I'm going to explain to you why.
I would go there.
I don't know if you want.
No, I do.
Basically, she came previously, okay? She was a previous candidate. And she came with some very good qualifications. I thought she was excellent, okay? And I lobbied for Madison, though, and not because you're sitting in front of me. I'm going to tell you that I lobbied for Madison because of your youth. And that could be against us, it could be used against me in court of law as age discrimination or whatever, but yeah, so the other reason that, I liked you, Madison, was because of the experience as an engineer. So, that being said, I'm going to be very truthful, I look at this board as a big toolbox, okay? And I go to that toolbox, pick, what tool I need for that job. And that's why my thing with Heather, she has a lot of experience, okay, in the legal field, one, okay? So it just adds another dimension to this board.
Yeah, and for me, you may not even know this, but the board was actually split when it came to a point that you and Heather, I pushed for Madison primarily because I thought it would be a fresh perspective. It's also somewhat the age thing, but I think our board has changed now. I think we have 2 members that are relatively new to town. I really liked Heather the last time, but we had 3 members that had been here for many, many, many years. And I thought that another member that would bring some newer perspective of what other folks see Hamden as when they decide to move here would have been beneficial. I think our board makeup has changed now. I really liked her resume is ridiculously impressive.
Yeah.
She's got her act together. She was a nurse for 20, 25 years and then decided to go to law school and become a lawyer. And has been doing that for 14 years. I think her professional experience will be a major asset to this group. And she also has, if I'm not mistaken, been in Hamden for 25 or 30 years. So I think that
She left and came back.
right, left and came back. So, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer from my perspective that she would be my friend. And she's already, she already went through the interview process and was interested, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, whatever it was. So,
I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that we, what are we gonna do? That we recommend that Heather Beatty, I believe is how you pronounce her last name, be one of the applicants, the selectmen, or that we discussed with the selectmen on Monday for appointment to the
Okay, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Good. All right. Now comes the tough
Now,
part.
yeah,
Now it's good.
Should we, I mean, should we put them in order? Should we,
That's how we interviewed them? Or how do you want to?
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, we can go one by one and go over pros and cons. Or if you guys have standouts that you.
I do too, but go.
Let's go.
Go for it. So, just from tonight, a lot, just experience with attorney applicants that have experience looking at blueprints or block plans and understanding it, not to say that they can't, but, and the fact that you kind of stepped up increases, as you said. And then also, Rich, just the way he kept presented himself, I think that the way you can interface with the town and learn, and he's obviously an educator, and that could bring a lot to the group also.
I don't really have standouts.
Okay.
You can go with your standouts and go back to my notes here.
So I went through and I kind of like, I gave Christina, number 2. Okay. And some of the reason is that I was impressed. She hit a lot of the buzzwords that I am very familiar with, okay, being in industry. But another thing is and I'm not an age discriminator, but it always interests me that young people, okay, take an interest in the town. It's a good town. It's very good. And please don't think I'm sexist or anything, but for a woman to step up in a board like this is another reason. So I look at that and I say that's a pretty good thing for a woman to be
We
able
call
to.
that diversity these days.
It's diversity. I've been into human resources so many times. So it's okay. It's okay. I've been there, trust me. Spent a lot of my time in, as I called it, human remains. So, anyways, that was my second choice. Don, very good. They're very strong. Again, mirroring what you said, Madison, stepping up. Definitely, he's got the experience, and that's a big plus, okay, at this time, at this board's juncture. Okay? It's a big commitment. So, do you really want to jump into the fray? It's a nightmare, to be truthful. So, again, very strong. And Richard, I like Richard too. Richard was very energetic, open. So those are, I guess, my choices in kind of that order, okay?
Yeah, for me, I liked how Richard interviewed. To me, this is only because of this specific board makeup. I probably wouldn't be pushing towards Richard because I think we need one more person. We're going to have 2 folks that are relatively new to town last 5-10 years. I think we need 3 folks on the board that have, decades in this town. I'm being honest. That's my, I think the board needs to be diverse and there needs to be varying perspectives in order for us to work well. So I would personally be pushing for someone on the board that has been in town a little bit longer than Richard, and that I almost feel bad saying that because I'm kind of a newbie too, and you always want folks to get involved, but I think this particular board, the way we have the makeup right now, I think we would benefit from somebody who's been here 20, 30 years. So that's my perspective. So I would have probably, although I liked Richard and I thought he interviewed really well, I would probably put him lower on my list simply because of the amount of time that he's been in town. Don has plenty of experience with planning. He's definitely been in town long enough. Honestly, I had Christine and I think it was Mark. Was it Mark or Marquis?
Oh,
Mark, right?
yeah.
So I had Christine and Mark probably as kind of favorites. Christine because she's a bit on the younger side, grew up in Hampton, is now here. I mean, she's certainly familiar with the town and has a lot more history here than I do. I liked the fact, the way that she looks at problems, the process that she explained going through for work. I found those to be substantial assets, and her experience with regards to the key school and being put in a situation where she has to make the right decision regardless of what her emotions tell her to do. I think that would be a very important asset to the board. She works with multiple teams at work, so I mean, that's not any different than being on a board or committee. So I was pushing, those were the positives I saw. Christine and Mark Mark has the background in architecture, which I think would be translate to reading site plans. She's dealing with vertical construction, but it's not like you're looking at 2D. You're trying to imagine whether it's above ground or below ground. She's going to be able to take
Positive or negative.
Right. She's going to be able to pick that up, and she's also been here for 50 years. Raised here, so she's got the background in building and engineering, which I think would be an asset as well. So I mean, I'm kind of stuck between those three folks. My order would probably, yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very,
I'd be open to suggestions, but I'm stuck kind of between those three, and I'd probably necessarily go more.
That's okay. So here's a thought, as Don expressed in his meeting this past Monday, okay? He's not gonna rubber stamp it. But, if we go, let's think about maybe, we know we got a first, we got a second and a third, okay? So if that helps you,
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only one that.
and my thing is that if he gets, I'll go just a little deeper here. My thing is that if the select board votes, no go on something or whatever, we'll have this, we can come back with another person in our hip pocket. They're here, they're gonna know. And this isn't, I'm not hiding anything. But again, there's also the possibility, Rick, as our alternate, has made notions that he may want to. So that third person or whatever, so there's a possibility, and I haven't talked to Rick about this, okay? But again,
So you guys both had Christine and Don, right?
yeah, kind of Christine and Don, yes. I don't mean to.
Christine,
I would mention Christine, but
She did long
No,
time.
but it's, Barbara points out how long she's left-handed and she back from the what I'm doing. Obviously very good at this, but it's a career. As we have right-handed.
I could, if I were to pick two, I could go Christine and Don.
I think I would do Christine and Dawn.
And on for an alternate, is that what you're saying? Yeah. If that's, you know,
If that's
and
possible.
that may not be what they want to do, but again, I'm putting stuff out there. And again, it all hinges, this is going to hinge on Monday. So again,
I'm sure we'll be hashing it out on Monday, too.
and again, as I said in the beginning, that the select board can, you know, you'll have your chance to speak to these people that we bring forward. You're hearing our discussions now, and of course, you can shoot holes in it if you'd like. We're open to that. And again, we're trying to make a decision. It's a tough, I've never had, in my limited time on this board, I've never had so many good applicants. No, as many good applicants. Yeah,
Or as many.
Yeah, you know, we had, last year we had 3 to fill one spot, so. But again, all good people.
True.
Yes, true. But it's, I mean, it impresses me, the people that are willing to step up in that hornet's nest is right behind you, and they're willing to step up and face the hornets, okay, that are here. So, yeah, I'm very, very thankful that the town has those people. So I'll let you, King, if you want to make them, are you comfortable? Let us.
I'm comfortable with either Christine or Don, to be honest with you. So how would we do that? I mean, Heather's definitely my first choice, without a doubt.
And hopefully,
She'll have fun.
I'm not sure if she was at the last meeting.
Yeah, she is.
So, again, that's another question that we have to ask. Once does she still want to come on once we voted her, we're saying yes.
Yeah.
And again, it depends on the selectmen on Monday. We vote now to bring our candidates forward. In the selectmen, it's a majority vote. So if they all say no and we say yes, and it's not sure, we'd have to talk to legal counsel, but yeah, no, well,
I'm just, Mr. Chairman, just letting you know,
sure.
they were all excellent candidates. I agree, they're really impressive, the quality and the interest, and goes well. For the people who don't get it, I'm already lining them up for other boards.
And I'm being, like I said, I'm very impressed.
Yeah, no, it's.
One other thing,
Sure.
the two positions are different terms, so we have to figure out
Yeah.
who we want where.
And I'm not sure how it works, and correct me, they would actually, I'm not looking, I'm saying.
I don't know the term, but go ahead.
I guess they served the next election,
Right.
and then they would run for
The empty term,
the rest of the term.
correct, yes. Yeah.
Serve to the election.
So they'll serve
Finish up
till the
either-
I'd like to maybe work that out later on,
Which one fitted to who.
And again, they, after this, little, 8-month, whatever indoctrination, they may, right, they may be looking for a rope and a 3-legged chair, who knows? I know certainly I am, that's okay.
So we're gonna have another vacancy soon. So where do we go from here on?
Okay,
What do you
let's
think?
do this. I'm gonna entertain a motion for Christina for the second.
Or I should make the motion since you're chair.
I will entertain a motion.
Okay, yeah, so I move that we vote to nominate Christine Broder for
Christina
I'm
Scar.
sorry. Christina Broder for the second open position.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. So that's 3. Now, as an alternate, like I said, if the selectmen, when they interview or hear, next people, let's pick somebody that possibility would be interested in an alternate or, stepping in as the replacement depending on the next one.
So I would move that we nominate, I guess, Don Collins for either an alternate position or to fill one of the vacancies should the selectmen disagree with
And
our nominations.
he has, of course, that option to say yes or no. Yes. Yep. All in favor? All of you, I don't know how many people are here left, but, I appreciate your interest. Don, thank you again. Christina, thank you. I don't know if anybody else is left. No. It's a tough decision, it's a tough spot that we're in. I appreciate my members of the board. Honestly, thank you for sticking it out.
Well, happy to.
Tough one, thank you. Yep.
Just making an observation. It's obvious people have left. I think it's because we do basically what we won't say. I know there's a sound system that we had.
Yeah.
I don't know why it wasn't implemented tonight, but I think it was an insult to people who were here. We did not hear it. I'd say 10 or 12 people, which is probably half the people left because of that.
Yeah, I'm, like I said, originally I did not schedule this week, okay? It's a very.
For town participation on meetings, we have to make it
Yeah,
a little bit easier for people to.
and I understand, I understand that. This really was no participation by the town. But I was not entertaining any questions from any of the towns.
But we were here to hear.
Yeah, that point's taken. Motion, I think we're done with our agenda, I believe. Yeah. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All seconded? All in favor? Aye. Okay.